Good morning, everyone. This is day 2 of our data handling and analysis training. On day 1, we're able to look through our data and talked about some data handling ethics, and we also talked about some data analysis functions and formulas and how to make use of them and what they do per time. And we also created some summaries of our analysis, try to solve some business problems using our data. Today, we will be presenting our reports based on the tasks that are given to us. The instructions are clear about how to impute our data, how to generate the summary page, and for each group to present their report on the group business problem. All right, I'm sure we are good to go. We'll be having that in this order. And all I want to wish you is good luck and have fun presenting your report. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning. My name is Deborah Ogirinde, and I'll be representing Group 1 in this data presentation. Okay, so first, let me also appreciate you. We cannot thank you enough for this wealth of knowledge you have transferred to us and the opportunity to learn. Going by the assignments we have, can we see my screen, please?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you very much. I will need to be going back and forth, looking at the instruction and showing you the answers we have to those instructions. So the first thing we're supposed to do was for us to create columns, the ones highlighted in red from 7 on this my screen, downwards to 821. We're supposed to create those columns, and we have a data type to guide us on what to create. So for column 7, head teacher name, and column 8, is there an assistant head teacher? We should use a yes or no. So this is head teacher names on column F here, as seen on my screen. We have to just input names, since we gave us the liberty to use our own data. So we have names for all the schools, the names of head teachers for all schools in Lagos State here. And the second column is if there's an assistant head teacher. So we have a yes or no. We're able to create that column with the drop down to select either a yes or a no, as seen on my screen. Then we were to create, okay, let me just show these columns like that. We're to create, answer the question if there is a teacher gap. The instruction was to use a yes or no too, and we're able to do that. Then you ask that we show whether the most teachers live either far or near, and we have that answer here too. Teachers living far or near. So then the next question was for us to answer on column A, row 11, number of teachers teaching and non-teaching. We're supposed to put that in whole number. The next one was supposed to come in percentage. So we have this for number of teachers in our column J here. Number of teachers in whole numbers. So we splitted that to have the number of, we created 2 additional columns, number of non-teaching staff on this column K, and the number of teaching staff on column L. So if you actually had the teaching staff and the non-teaching staff together, if you had these 2 columns together, K and L, we have the column J, the total number of teachers for each school. Then we have the percentage of non-teaching staff taking class and also average number of pupils per class. We use formulas for all of this. I don't know if you want me to be mentioning the formulas, but this is the answer to the question. So I don't know if you want to know how we arrived at those answers.
Okay, I would have loved to have, all of that. We would have loved to have all of that, but we are restricted to like 5 minutes or thereabout, or a little more. So basically, run through your data inputs. We have an idea of your data inputs. Is your analysis part that I really want you to talk more on? Thank you.
All right, sir. So our analysis is on our summary page. So this is where we have the analysis. We have 10 questions to actually answer. We're to create all the LGAs using the unique function to extract all the LGAs. So we have that on column A here. And you can see our formula down the screen. We have all the LGAs. Then the number of schools in each LGA was the second thing we're supposed to answer. And here we have the number of schools and how we arrived at it using our count if formula. We're also to name the number of regional managers. School regional manager on column B. System of school letters put together here. Then we have percentage of schools, percentage of and the page is actually on column G2 here and column H. And then, so going further, number of teachers per supervisor, we did this for just Alimosho. All the other data has been for the old schools in Lagos State, but for Alimosho supervisors now, Alimosho Ifako-Ijaiye, we have total number of supervisors, and that is on our column K here, and average KPI per supervisor. So with this average KPI per supervisor, from what we have here, it's showing that the supervisor with the highest, like we were supposed to deduce from our data, is Dureri and Basiro with 81.66% from the data we have here. She has the highest KPI. Then going to our lesson completion, to our KPIs, the 8 KPIs we targeted to work with here. The KPIs are listed on column N, and then we have the average KPI. For this average is for all schools put together. This is what we have. We have the maximum for each of the KPI stated in column P and the minimum stated in column Q. So now we were able to work out the number of schools with 85% and above on each of the KPI and the number of schools with below 85%. We needed to do this and the average so that we could answer our main question, which is for us that the MD need to take action on the target to set for all KPIs. Last academic session, all KPIs were set at 85%. We had to use the data to justify why or why not we should set target. The set target should be the same for all KPIs. So from the data we got here, looking at this average on column O, we have been able to conclude that the flat line of 85% may not work for percentage lesson completion, percentage school leader arrived and departed on time, and percentage teacher arrived and departed on time, percentage pupil attendance mark, and percentage short teacher observation. It should have a varying target every time because many schools are behind expectation in this focus KPI. While for percentage long teacher observation, percentage school leader present, percentage teacher present, majority of the schools exceeded the target KPI of 85%. So the above KPIs can be fixed at 90%. They could exceed 85% target. And finally, the data collected shows that all criteria cannot be achieved using a uniform KPI. Therefore, we recommend that the target KPI should vary, as KPIs that were exceeded need to have higher target to meet, while KPIs below expectations be brought down to an achievable percentage. And then the last assignment we were to do was to create a tab with schools with teacher gaps. So this is the tab we were able to create, and we have 227 schools with teacher gap across Lagos State. So this is our presentation, our conclusion from the data we're able to collect. Thank you very much for listening.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you once again for this awesome opportunity. So I'll be presenting the screen. My name is Shomolu, and now presenting for group, which is team Amuwo-Badagry. Following the workplace of Badagry, filling the data that was required for us to do the analysis. And that can be seen here on the data tab. We filled in all of the KPIs that Benga requested using random numbers and just our discretion. And then we moved on to the data analysis proper. For the first task, which was names of all the LGAs, we used the unique function and we were able to pull that data out. Then we moved on to the number of schools in each LGA. We also used the unique function, the number of schools in each of the LGA. We used the unique if function also, and we're able to pull that out. Then the number of regional managers can be found here. The list of regional managers. We also use the unique function. I must say that small expo that you gave, that is the instruction in front of each of the tasks. It proved very, very helpful. We used all of those functions and they helped us get the data. The next was list of schools under the RMs. We also used the unique function for that one. Then we moved on to number of schools without assistant head teachers. We used the count if function to get number of schools with and without assistant head teachers. Then the percentage of schools without teacher gaps. What we did first was to get we did for both those with teacher gaps and those without teacher gaps, and we used the count if function for that. Then the number of average pupil per class, we used the average function to get that. And total number of teachers under each supervisor, we use the unique function to get that. The number of which supervisors in the region have the highest KPI. For that, we use various techniques, but we color-coded them so that those the KPIs that scored 95 and above got a light green, just like we do in Excel. The KPIs 85 and above got a deep green, 70 and above got an orange, and 69 and below got a red. And then my mom is and then we also created a separate tab where we listed of schools. From what we put down, we have.
Yemi, please mute your mic. Yemi, please. Let me see.
We have 651 schools with teacher gap. Then to do the task that was assigned to us, what we did first was to filter. We filtered schools. We filtered schools with assistant head teachers, and then schools without assistant head teachers. And then we moved on to this place to do the average. So for schools with assistant head teachers, their LTO average. Schools with assistant head teacher, LTO average is at 61%. LTO average is at STO 61, LTO 83. Then for schools without assistant head teachers, LTA is at 56. And then LTO is at 82%. So conclusion shows, the data shows that the availability or lack of assistant head teachers in school does not necessarily result in an increased or reduced performance of LTO or STO. And that's it from us. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This Mushin Apapa region presentation on data handling and analysis. We have the group 3. So these are the group members, and our regional manager is Sophia. So basically, each data analysis problem were discussed and solved by the team members who were very much interested in understanding the various functions and formulas used to derive the needed result. Though several errors occurred during this process, but we came out triumphantly at the end. So this is the link to the our spreadsheet, which I'm going to open now. Sorry, network is a bit delaying. Okay, can we all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so for the Mushin and Apapa team, we're able to gather several data based on the needed or based on the instruction as given by Sagbenga. So first thing we did was to get the various data. You can see the name of schools, the name of head teacher. Is there an assistant head teacher in the school? So we're able to get that using validation. So we're able to validate schools with assistant head teacher and those without. Then we were able to also bring out teachers that live far or near in their various locations or schools. So each percentage is shown as seen here, but our sum, let me just quickly go to the summary page. Okay, basically due to time factor, we're actually unable to picture or color code each activities, but I think we can all see what we did here. So for example, LGAs, we're able to, using the formulas, we're able to carve out the LGAs for the number of schools in each LGA and the regional managers covering the LGAs. Then we're also able to number of schools for each regional managers, the number of schools with assistant head teacher, and number of schools without assistant head teacher, school with teachers gap. And that was how we were able to go through that. And now, for our MD's data-driven request hypothesis, teachers distant to school affect teachers' arrival and departed on time. Use your data to prove or disprove. From the data-driven from our finding, it showed that there is actually no significant difference between teacher distance and teacher arrival and departed on time. So what this means basically is that looking at the data set that we had, we were able to figure out that actually the place or the distance of a teacher's home from school do not determine such teachers' arrival or departed, because You can see, for example, for Mushin schools and Apapa schools, to be precise, you see that though most of our teachers don't stay in their various locations, but in terms of teacher arrival and departed on time, I'm coming, let me see if I can get that. Okay, yes. So you can see that even with that, for teacher arrival and departed on time for our schools, we're still able to make a significant huge number of teacher arriving on time, because from statistics shows that most of Apapa teachers don't stay in Apapa, and most of Mushin teachers don't also stay in Mushin. So conclusively, we can therefore say that what teachers home or where they stay do not significantly, we are not saying does not, but significantly does not lead to teacher arrival and departed on time. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, I'll be presenting for Lagos-Mainland local government. Can we see my screen, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for responding. Okay, so this is the first part of the data where we are told to determine the name of the head teacher, if there's an assistant head teacher, the teacher gap, and the rest, and giving the instruction for validation and where percentages are needed. Now, being that we work together as Ekpe and local government, so we decided to focus on Ekpe because we cannot generate data for other regions. So we stayed strictly, we filtered for Ekpe and Lagos Island and worked with that data. All right, so to our summary page. All right, so for the local governments, we use the unique formula to generate the unique local governments we have. Then we used the count if to determine the number of schools that were represented in each local government. We also use the unique formula to determine the regional manager for each local government, and the local government, the regional managers we have. Then we use the count if formulas for the number of schools each regional manager has. Then the question that says the number of schools with head teachers. So we just use the count if to show where it stated yes. So yes, indicating that yes, there is an head teacher in the school. And for number of schools without head teacher, we just change from yes to no, signifying that there's no head teacher in the school. Then for the percentage of schools without teachers, so we use our county formula, then we divide it with our region, which we're working with, that's our 106. So to get the percentage, and we adjusted that using our formatting to ensure that we have percentage. So we notice that we have 28% teacher gap according to the data that we used. All right, so for the average people, we use the average formula. Then for this, we use the counter here. Then lesson completion. Now for this part, this KPI part, it was kind of trickish. So what we did was we highlighted all the 8 KPIs that we have across that were given. Then for each of our supervisors, we picked our own unique, the average of your lesson completion, our lesson completion for all the schools. So we have the average for each of the KPI. That way you can see that's what we have here for all the supervisors. So then we now analyze that, determining who has the highest KPI. So we use the mass value formula to determine the maximum outputs that we have for each KPI. So the maximum value now help us determine the supervisor that has the highest KPI. Now, I am going to ask 2 questions. I remember in the after now, because I will not hide our errors. We want to learn. We're not able to figure out just two things. And I would love you to let me state that before I answer the MD questions. Okay, for this part, we wanted to use VLOOKUP. So the VLOOKUP could help us pick out we don't need to manually look at it, because imagine we have data that is so much and want to pick out numbers. It will not be the names. It will not be easy to go ahead. So we use this VLOOKUP formula, that is VLOOKUP for 92 when we're looking for 92 as our search key. Then the range, we pick the range at the index, but it did not give us what we wanted. So I would love you to help explain why we didn't get the result we wanted. That's number one. Number two, okay, so for this very part that says that the total number of teachers per supervisor, we use the formula that we ought to use, but we realize that we're not getting the answer we ought to get. That is sum, if, and all of that. I don't know if you can see where I am highlighting right now. So I will help you. I will love it if you can shed more light with us and help us see what we were doing wrong. Because the formula seems to be very correct, but we couldn't figure out what was actually wrong. All right, so let me go to the MD question. All right, the next question that says that we should bring out the schools that have only teacher gap. So here we have the data of schools that has only this teacher gap. If you look at the school, you see that there is teacher gap. You have yes. So these are the schools that have only the teacher gap, and these are the data for those schools. All right. Then for the MD question now. So this is the MD question. Our question says that is an hypothesis that schools with 50 plus average pupils per class tend to have low lesson completion. So we're told to prove or disprove with the data. So from the data we have here, so we filtered out the school that has 50 and above pupils, and we realized that after we counted, we noticed that 11 schools out of the 16 schools that we have here are over 85 and above, which is the benchmark that we use in Eti-Osa or our goal, our targeted goal. So that means we're meeting and exceeding expectations. So this was the conclusion we drew from that from the data presented in G37 to G760, which shows the school that have pupils between 50 and 60, and age 37 to age 60, which shows the percentage of lesson completion of schools represented. It can be conclusively stated that schools with pupils greater than or equal to 50 do not have a low lesson completion. Also, from the charts that we are seeing there, we can see that all these pupils that have, all the schools that have pupils with 50 and above tend to be above 75, and even most of them are above. If you check the middle of 75 and 100, you see that they tend to be at the upper side. So that means that we can conclusively say that the schools that have over 50 pupils, 50 and above, does not have low lesson completion. So the amount of pupils in the classroom does not affect the lesson completion of teachers. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Gbenga. Thank you for the opportunity you have granted unto us. It's actually a rare privilege to have you put us through all this. Thank you to RMA for the opportunity in organizing this. Okay, permit me to share our screen. So I am Chris Iwoha, representing Ajeromi Felodun and IKEJA group. And we've been able to carry out the assignments within our power. So without wasting our time, we're able to do most of the things that we're asked to do from the instruction which was given to us earlier on head teacher name and all that. So we're able to carry all that. We're able to derive names of head teacher. We got data from other sources, and we were able to get names of head teacher. Through data validation, we're able to get all the criteria for questions like, is there an assistant head teacher? Yes or no. So with data validation, we're able to get that and get that sorted out. We also went further with data validation to know, is there teacher gap? All right. With data validation, we're able to find out if where most teachers live, if it is far or near. So data validation helps us to come up with that, as you can see on the screen. Number of teachers. From the knowledge we gained from our lesson yesterday, our session yesterday, we're able to apply the knowledge of RAND, the formula RAND and RAND between, to be able to get numbers that, how will I call it now, arbitrary numbers, in order for us to carry out the task given to us. And after doing that, we had to copy it to make sure that the number does not keep changing per time. So that was what my team was able to draft out yesterday. And as you can see, the numbers are stable and the percentage are well structured. Everything is intact. Where going further, we still went to find out number of supervisors in the unique names of supervisor in the whole of AJIF, and we use the unique function to derive that. So quickly, I will drive to the summary page. The summary page, we're able to draft out a couple of things from the summary page, answering each of the questions given to us from the LGA. So with the LGA, we use our unique function to get each name of each of the respective LGA. And we went further to know how many number of schools do we have in each LGA. And that was sorted out LGA by LGA. We're able to get number of schools in each LGA. Also, we were able to go and we wanted to find out what are the names of the respective regional managers, because looking at that from the data that we have, we know that the regional managers are scattered all around. So we wanted to have a specific name attached to each regional manager without repeating itself. And we're able to come up with that using unique function again. So going further, we wanted to know how many schools does each of these regional managers oversee. And we're able to get the number of schools that these regional managers are taking care of on daily basis. So that was what we were able to do. We went for the number of schools with assistant head teacher, and we use the count E function to know, and that is from the data, from the main data given to us. We're able to select only those that will have, if there are head teachers in that school, yes. So you can see in quotation, we put the yes there. So from the data where we have yes for head teachers, we have to select that, and that was what we have. If there an head teacher, you will discover that those with no head teacher did not appear on this number of schools with assistant head teachers. Number of schools without assistant head teachers, 338, and that was gotten using the count E function. Number of schools without teacher gap, we also got that through the count E function. What is the percentage of schools without teacher gap? And we used the divide. We divided the total number of schools without head teacher by the total number of, we divided the total number of schools without teacher gap by the total number of schools we have, and that gave us 34%. So this divided by this gave us 0.34 something, and we converted it to percentage and reduced the decimal places, and here we come with 34%. What is the average number of pupils per class? So we're able to get that we have 35 number of pupils per class on the average across the whole schools. So here again, we came to find out who are the supervisors in this region, and we use the unique data to get that. In highlighting the total number of teachers under each supervisor, we use the summary function to find out what is the total number of teacher assigned to Abdul Fattah Aminat in
the number of supervisors we have. So we're able to use the summary function to find out what is the total number of teachers supervised by the supervisor Aminat, and that was applicable to all other supervisors. And we went down and we found that regional managers, we were able to find out each of the regional managers using the filter. In this case, we use the filter to find out each of the regional managers. So we wanted to find out which of the supervisors in our region, have the highest average KPIs in each of the 8 KPIs. Before going into that, I needed to find out. You can see we did a lot of things on the sheet in terms of conditional formatting to differentiate between yes and no, far and near, and the likes. Also, you can see that when we have the non-teaching percentage of non-teaching staff taking classes, we're able to differentiate that with a benchmark of 85% and above. We were able to categorize it. If it is less than 85% and above, we gave it a color. We give it a conditional formatting of brown, and while we have green for 85 and above. That was a major thing we did with respect to all the other KPIs, and we looked at the performance of each of those supervisors in all the KPIs. The supervisors applicable to Ajeromi, Ikorodu, and IKEJA AJIF. So that was what we did. Going further, we wanted to find out. One beautiful thing we did, my group was able to do, is to find out how can we run have a display such that we can select each of the local governments and something like we have in our dashboard, and we can have each of the characteristics of the schools or local government or the count that is applicable to that local government you are looking for. For example, you see me now, by the time I tap on this drop-down menu here, using the data validation we used to get that, I can select any of the local government and I will get corresponding data with respect to that local government. For example, let me take Badagry. Badagry now, the data I am having here is with respect to Badagry, and this shows me all the schools applicable to Badagry. You will not see any other school from any other local government here. The same thing is applicable when we try other local government like IKEJA. You will see schools applicable to IKEJA reflecting here, and data the validation helped us to come up with that. And we went to find out the local government, and we used the unique function to find the local government. In finding out how many what is the number of schools per each of the local government, we use the count unique ifs function, and that helped us to get total number of schools in each of the local government, and total in sum we were able to get 1,011 schools using the data from the total data we got from there. So we have about 1,011 schools across the whole LGA. And regional managers, we came about number of schools per each regional manager. How many schools are each of these regional managers handling? We were able to come up with that, and that is assigned. So with this, regional manager Salimonu Abiodun can actually say yes at a glance that he knows how many schools he is covering. He can actually make a comparison between the number of schools he's having or he is overseeing with other regional managers with the use of these data. So quickly, we wanted to look at school distribution per regional manager using graphical expression. So to actually show how are the schools distributed across the regional managers with respect to their allocation. And this is what we have. And with this, you can say, oh, with so percent, I am covering 10.5% of the total number of schools in Lagos State. May AXA can say, yes, I'm having 10.5% of the total number of schools in Lagos State. So that is that. And we come straight down here to where we have the lesson completion performance of each of the supervisors, KPI performance of each of the supervisors with respect to their performance. So you can see all their performance, and we got each of the performance using mark-is function for each of the supervisors, and we're able to come to the average of each of those KPIs. And when I came to the average, the essence of having this average is to make a comparison between each of the average of the supervisors with respect to the KPI and the average. With this now, I can say that, it is only Iwo-Hachimezie Chris met up with the expectation of 95% and above, criteria for this performance. So I can come up here, that is on lesson completion. We can come to school leader present and say, which of the supervisors met up? We say Iwoha. We can come to percentage teacher arrived and departed on time. We can say, Alimosho Ezekiel Enyola is the supervisor meeting up with more than 95% of what we have as benchmark. So with this, we can run that, if the average is 91%, the whole of 96, any number above 91% can be said to be doing pretty fine, and any number below that can be said to be having one or two challenges, and extra attention can be paid to that supervisor or that region. So we also have a graphical representation of this school distribution of assistant head teachers. We have 60% having assistant head teacher, while 33% not having assistant head teacher. Then we have number of schools in each LGA's comparison of that school distribution per regional manager. Quickly, we to answer the MD's question. Before I answer the MD question, let me take you to the school with teacher gap. So we're able to use filter to get data with schools with teacher gap. And when we're filtering, we wanted to know specifically that it is only schools, we wanted to find out only schools that have teacher gap that is enlisted here, so that we will not have those without teacher gap as in the general data. So if you hear is there teacher gap, you will see that all of them are yes. There are teacher gaps in this sheet. With the filter, we're able to get this done, and successfully it was done. So taking us down to where we have to present this to the MD. The MD is interested to know what is the relationship between non-teaching staff performance with respect to lesson completion and where a case here will have otherwise. So she's interested to know what is happening. Is it possible that it is the teachers where we have non-teaching, is the use of non-teaching staff affecting lesson completion or not? So we were able to come up with our benchmark of 70%, that is our benchmark in analyzing this. And we came up, and when we did the average lesson completion for schools with high non-teaching staff, using the average, we got 49%. So, and with this, so we did, after getting this 49% from the M value, this percentage lesson completion, and we had to run the average, which is 49%, and we're looking at the benchmark of 70%, we were able to find out that it was less than the benchmark of 70%. So the first hypothesis was that if the average lesson completion for schools with high percentage of non-teaching staff is greater than 70%, this implies that having high percentage of non-teaching staff does not really mean or equate to having low lesson completion. And the alternative hypothesis states that if the average lesson completion for schools with high percentage of non-teaching staff is less than 70%, this implies that having high percentage of non-teaching staff results in having low lesson completion. Do not forget that we are still dealing with where we have high non-teaching staff. So at the end of the day, we came up with the conclusion that because since the average lesson completion of schools with high non-teaching staff is 49%, which is far below the benchmark of 70%, we rejected the null hypothesis, which states that if the average lesson completion of schools with high percentage of non-teaching staff is greater than 70%, this implies that having a high percentage of non-teaching staff does not equate having low lesson completion. And we accepted the alternative hypothesis, which states that having high percentage of non-teaching staff results in having low lesson completion. So indeed, we can say conclusively that the
non-teaching staff is really impacting, is having a high impact on the lesson completion negatively, because we can see with the 49% here and 70% here, the disparity is quite huge, and it is something that needs to be looked upon. So invariably, this was what my team was able to come up with throughout the yesterday and early this morning. So that is all I have for the assignments assigned to Ajeromi Felodo and IKEJA team. Thank you.
First and foremost, I want to appreciate the organizer of this program. And I also want to appreciate the facilitator, which is our Harriet. Thank you very much, Director. We really appreciate it. Okay, so from the sheet shared, the first thing we had is the data, the instruction, then the grouping. So for Ikorodu and Kosofe, what we did at first is to create another data tab where we were able to pull all the data that Arenbenga shared with us, because we don't want to alter anything on his own data sheet. And in case we make any error, we would make reference to it. So we created our own tab for all our data, from regional manager, island supervisors, so all the data that we will need, and we actually validated and filtered as necessary. Okay, so going to the task. So the first task is to use the unique function to extract the distinct LGAs. So this is the first task, all the LGA, and if you tap on the first LGA, which is Ikorodu, you'll see the unique function being displayed. So then the number of schools in each LGA. So we have it beside the LGA. So instead of listing the LGA again and the number of schools beside it, we try to combine question 1 and 2, task 1 and 2. So we need to highlight the LGAs again. So when you tap on the first number of schools in each LGA, the instruction asks us to use count if. So we used count if for all of this data. So if you go through all the data, you will notice that count if is applicable from top to bottom. So the third one is to get all the names of all the regional managers. We know that from the sheets, we have repeated names of regional managers. So the first thing we did on our sheet to sort the names of regional managers alphabetically. So we'll see that the names of the regional managers are highlighted alphabetically. So after getting the names of regional managers alphabetically, so the next thing we did was the number of schools each regional manager has. Okay, so for each regional manager, the function we also use there is count if. So we use count if for all of the schools being covered by each regional manager. And since Agege Charles is our regional manager in Ikorodu, we have 65 schools, and in Kosofe we have 40 schools. So this makes it 105. So the count if is also applicable to all of the regional manager schools. So we can see that from top to bottom. And we have the total number of schools at the end of everything. So we can see that in Excel we have 1,011 schools, and that is what we have here. Then the next question is, how many schools have AHT, assistant teacher, and how many does not have? So we went back to our data sheet. So here we validated the age column. Is there an assistant head teacher? So we filled with yes and no respectively. So from this data age, we were able to get the schools with a head teacher and assistant head teacher, and the schools without assistant head teacher. And from our data, we've been able to know that we have schools with assistant head teacher, that we have more schools with assistant head teacher and lesser number of schools without assistant head teacher. And the function we also used here is count if function.
Then the next one is, what is the percentage of schools without teacher gap? We also went back to our data. We will see that in column I, is there teacher gap? We also validated the column to specify if yes or no for our teacher gap. So what we used here, we used the %E function. Since we already have the validation, we validated the column, so we just went straight to percentage, and we were able to get the teacher gap, the percentage of the teacher gap. So the next one is the average number of pupils per class. Average number of pupils per class. So we already have the average for each of the schools that each of the regional managers are overseeing. So what we did is just to get the average of the overall average of all the schools. So we used average function and we were able to come up with 41.3. So the next question here is, highlight the total number of teachers under each supervisor. For all the supervisors in the program in Excel from all of the regions, we have their names highlighted, and we use the unique function to extract all the supervisors' names. Then after doing that, we use the sum function to sum the number of teachers under each supervisor. So according to the regional managers, we'll see that the supervisors are also highlighted. So we were able to use the list of the supervisor's name, the column of the supervisor's name, and so the column of number of teachers, both teaching and non-teaching, to get the sum of each supervisor's number of teachers all together. So we'll see that this sum is applicable to all of the supervisors. If we continue, we'll see that the sum is applicable. It's not just applicable to, or we picked randomly. So number 9 question, which supervisors in your region have the highest average KPIs in each of the 8 KPIs? So in Ikorodu, Kosofe region, these are the supervisors we have, and we checked the average of all the percentage of each supervisor in all of the 8 KPI, and we used the average function for all of the supervisors. So then we went ahead to check for each of the supervisors' average on each of the KPI. So after we've been able to do that, so we use the average also to get the average for each of the supervisor. Then we now moved on to highest average KPI. The highest average KPI in all of our region is 86%. Then the supervisor with the highest is Evelyn. So for us to get the highest average KPI, we use the max function to get the highest. So we used column V, since we already have the average of all the 8 KPIs of all of the supervisors. So we just use the max function to get the highest average KPI. Then the supervisor with the highest average KPI, we used both index and the max function together to get the name of the supervisor. So the name of the supervisor with the highest KPI is Evelyn Badagry. So we went ahead to also get the highest average KPI for each of the KPIs. We can see for lesson completion, for school leader present, for school leader arrived and departed on time. So what we used here was also max function. We used the max function to make sure that we get all of this data. Then the supervisor with each of this highest average, their names were also stated, and we used the max and index function. So Evelyn actually is the overall best supervisor, but we still have some other supervisors that did well in one KPI or the other. That's why we have their names listed here. So Bukola leader present, Evelyn for teachers arrived departed on time. So we use both max and index function. So for the 10th question, which is for us to filter for only the schools with teacher gap. So we went back to our data, then we collected the school ID, the school name, and if there is a teacher gap. So we filtered, and we filtered only the yeses schools. So the schools that has no options are not on this page. Okay, so going back to the MD's request. So the MD's request is that the hypothesis is that LGAs with riverine schools always have low percent pupil attendance marks. So we should prove or disprove with our data. Okay, so we have, what we did at first was to validate number of what type of school we have. After the school name and the school ID, we have what type of school is this? Is it a riverine or non-riverine? So we validated the sheet and filled appropriately. So when we calculated using the counting function, we were able to arrive at 112 for number of riverine schools and 899 for number of non-riverine schools. So after we've gotten that, then we went ahead to calculate the percentage of average pupils attendance records marked for each of this school. Okay, so this is it. It's showing in column S. So what is the average pupil attendance marked for each of the riverine and non-riverine schools? So for riverine schools, the average pupils attendance record marked is 80%. So we used average to get the percentage. So for non-riverine schools, we got 78%. And we also use the average function to help us get a uniform result. So from the hypothesis, considering the data collated by our team, we disproved the hypothesis that schools in riverine have low pupils attendance record marks. And we have few points to buttress this result. One, we are convinced that pupils in riverine areas have proximity to their schools because they are always within the border of their community. We also notice that pupils in riverine areas, their population is usually low, which always makes it easier for teachers to mark attendance correctly. Teachers are not feeling reluctant to mark attendance because their pupils are not many. Then another thing is that teachers' availability to mark pupils' attendance. Their teachers are readily available because they don't have a large number of class to teach or to call the attendance. And another thing is that the school leaders' presence and motivation usually encourage teachers to be more committed to their work, because when school leaders are present and they are portraying themselves as role models, teachers in one way or the other will emulate this attitude, and which will in turn tell on their pupils. So this is the end of our presentation from Ikorodu Kosofe team. And I want to appreciate everyone on this team. We did a great job. Most of us slept around 4 a.m. this morning just to work on this task. And we woke up early again around 6 a.m. to go back to this task. And we've been doing so many things on it. So thank you, Aaron Benga, for the privilege given unto us to work tirelessly, but we are happy that we arrived at a conclusion, and the conclusion is a lovely one. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning, Aaron Benga. Good morning, everyone. My name is Juliana Eti-Osa, and I'll be presenting for Ibeju-Lekki Ojo team. Can we all see my screen yet?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, starting from the first sheet titled data, so we're told to generate data from column G beyond. So for column G, which says, is there an assistant head teacher? We use the data validation we use the list from an item function in data validation to restrict the responses to only two options, yes or no. We also did the same for column H, where the question says, is there teacher gap? Now for column I, which says most teacher leave, we also use the data validation list function to restrict it to far or near. So you can only pick far or near. And then for column J, number of teachers, both teaching and non-teaching. Okay, we use the random function, the rand function, to just generate random numbers. And then, so we decide to do random numbers between 5 and 10 as shown in this formula. Then for column K, percent of non-teaching staff taking classes. So from here on, we just used pre-existing data. As you can see here, from column J to down to STO. So we just fill this with pre-existing data. So moving on, I'll move on to the first thing we did after generating our data was to respond to the MD's business problem, which says that there was a rumor that most teachers in Ekpe and Ibeju-Lekki don't usually go to school because officials from SUBEB hardly visit them. The MD needs data to support her weekly updates on this issue. Use your data to ascertain or argue against this. So here, since we already have the percent teachers present data on the data sheet, we use the average if function to get the percentage of teachers that are present in school in both Ekpe and Ibeju. And so we were able to deduce that 70% teachers on the average are present at Ekpe, while at Ibeju-Lekki we have 62%. So we base our argument on the fact that if either of the regions had below 50%, then this rumor would be true. Or if they had above 50%, then this rumor would be untrue. Hence our conclusion that based on our analysis, this rumor is untrue, as average teachers present in Ekpe and Ibeju-Lekki is 64% and 62% respectively, which are both above 50%. Now moving on to summary. So our summary page, the first question was to list all the LGA. So we use the unique function to list the LGA, as you can see here. For number of schools in each LGA, we use the count if function to generate the number of schools per LGA. Then for all the regional managers, we use the unique function also to generate the names of all the regional managers. And we also depicted that pictorially here, as you can see on this chart. So this chart shows you the names of the regional managers and the schools under each regional manager. Then for the next questions, the next question which says the number of schools without AHT. So we decided to respond. The next question was actually number of schools that had AHT and the ones that did not have AHT. Do they have AHT or not? So we separated it. We did a count for number of schools that had AHT using the counting function, and we also did same for schools that do not have AHT using the count if function as well. Then for the schools without teacher gap, we already have data on our data page. We have a column that says, is there teacher gap, yes or no? So we use the count if to pick the schools without teacher gap. How we did that was to use the counting function to count for schools that responded no. For any school where the response is no, they don't have teacher gap, That was what we used here to get schools without teacher gap. Then what is the percentage of schools without teacher gap? Since we already have the count of schools without teacher gap, we simply took the average by dividing this column by the total number of schools, as you can see in our formula here. Then for what is the average number of pupils per class? We use the average if function. Since we already also have number of pupils per class or percent pupils per class in the data sheet. Now for the question that asks that we highlight the total number of teachers under each supervisor, we decided to first get the names of the supervisors, and so we did a count. We did a unique function rather to generate the names of all the supervisors, as you can see here. And then we use the sum if to get the total number of teachers under each supervisor. And we went ahead to confirm from the data sheet to see if our data was correct. And we verified that this was correct. And then for the next question, which asked about the supervisor with the highest scores in all KPIs in our region. So we did a list of all the KPIs here. As you can see from column L to S. And then we also represented the KPIs here. And so for each supervisor, for each of the supervisors in Ibeju-Lekki and Ojo region, which are the regions that we are dealing with, we use the average function to get each supervisor's average score for each KPI. As you can see for Supervisor Abel, we have his average performance for lesson completion is 60% as is shown here. And so we did the same for all the supervisors in all the KPIs. And then we came here to get the highest number, the highest score, the highest score for each of the KPI. We use the max function. Since we already have a column here, column L, well, from column L down to S, we already have the KPIs and the scores. So we just simply use the max function to get the highest scores. And so here we encountered a challenge. We were unable to use, we wanted to use the VLOOKUP function here to just generate the name of the supervisor that had these scores. These are the highest scores. And so we're not able to do that, so we just entered it manually. And then for schools, the last question, which was schools with teacher gap, just as we did for the schools without teacher gap, we use the count if function to generate the schools with teacher gap, since we already had the data for whether schools had teacher gap or not in our data sheets. So that's that for us. Due to time constraints, we were only able to represent some of our data in charts. So that's that from the Ibeju-Lekki Ojo region. Thank you.
Karen Wenga, thank you everybody. Good afternoon. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, permit me to share my screen, please. All right, this is Arewa representing Agege Oshodi region. And here is the outcome of the task given to us yesterday. So question 1, we were to find all the LGEAs. So using the function unique We were able to do that. Then we had 20 local governments. We moved to the number of schools in each of the local governments. Using count-if function, we were able to do that as well, and the total of which is 1,011. Then we found all the regional managers. There are 10 in numbers. Using the unique function as well, we were able to find the number of schools that each of them had using count-if. Afterwards, we went to question 5. How many schools have assistant head teacher? So we did that using the count-if option. And how many don't have? We have 656 against 655. What is the percentage of schools without teacher gap? Here is it. And to calculate the percentage, we divided the total, that is 1,011, by 314 multiplied by 100, and that gave us 31%. What is the average number of pupils per class? Using average, we were able to get that from the raw file, raw data given to us. And the total of the average here is 788.14. Here are the supervisors in Eco-Excel. Using unique option, we're able to put that data as well accurately. Afterwards, we move to the highlight. We had to highlight the total number of teachers under each supervisor. Using SUMIF, we were able to do that seamlessly. We got all the number of schools that each supervisor has. Then question 9, we were to filter out the information of our own region, which we did here. So as you can see, it's a bit bulky. So we did a summary down here. Here is the summary. In Oshodi, we have 8 supervisors. 9 supervisors, sorry. And this is the team average for the lesson completion, 73.72. However, each supervisor's average is calculated using average if, as you can see here. We calculated that for all the 8 KPIs as demanded. We have the total breakdown, that is the team average for the whole team. You can see this thing is quite low. That's due to the numbers that we generated randomly. We worked on generated numbers, not facts. So to know the supervisors with highest KPIs, we generated that using max option as well. So here we have that. Now, to the question of the day. The hypothesis is the MD got a report from a region that teachers late coming to school has a significant effect on lesson completion. As a data-driven organization, kindly support or against this observation with your data for the MD. So here we have the answer to that. We have the KPI for all the local governments in Lagos State. Talking about the arriving and departing on time, and also when they arrive and departing on time, what is the lesson completion that they had. So we can see from here, the highest for arriving and departing on time happens to be Ikorodu. However, Ikorodu has the highest percent in arriving and departing on time with 78.78, as you can see, but doesn't have the highest lesson completed. Instead, Apapa, with the lowest percent in arriving and departing, has the highest percent in lesson completion. Hence, arriving and departing on time has nothing to do with lesson completion. Afterwards, we have to find the schools with teacher gap, which we also calculated using our yes or no via validation, and using can't A, we're able to get the total number of schools with teacher gap, which gives us 697. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you for listening. That's all from us.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Okoli Adana, and I'll be representing Shomolu, Lagos-Mainland, popularly known as Shomi for short. Firstly, I want to give a shout out to all my team members for their efforts and their participation in this task. So moving on, this is our data page. We're given a data already from column 1 down to column A down to column E. So we're asked to do the rest of the column. So firstly, what we did as a team was that we had 10 regional managers, so we distributed each regional manager's team to each supervisor to put in data for each of the schools, and this data consisted of from column F down to column I, which they had to put in the head teacher, is there an assistant, is there teacher's gap, and the distance between where the teacher live from the school. So after we did that, after we all put in our data, we went further to put in the data proper. So for this particular data being drawn up, we use range between to get this data. Like for the non-teaching, we use range between 3 to 20. Then the percentage for non-teaching, we use for the whole of the teaching staff, we use the range between 3 to 20. Then percentage for non-teaching in particular, we use range between 2 to 7. Then we divided by 100 to get the percentage proper. Then the average number of pupils, we also use range between. So from the data from column J down to column T, we use range between. Then we actually copied and pasted because we didn't want the data to be changing constantly. So we copied and pasted. That's why the formula actually disappeared. So that's how we got our random numbers for this particular data. So in our summary, moving on to our summary, the first thing we did was to draw up our data for the LGAs, which we use the formula unique to get all LGA names. Then the number of schools, we use formula of count if, where we did the data, refer to the data, then use the column C, where the LGAs were located, and where the LGAs were located, and we referred back to A2, just like that. Then moving on, we're asked to drop the data for regional manager, which we also use unique as well. Then the number of schools, we use count if. The number of assistant head teacher, we use count ifs, because we needed to we just wanted to draw up the number, the total number of teachers, the total number of assistant head teachers assigned, that's if the assistant head teacher actually assigned to that school, the number of schools with assistant head teacher, for example, for Ifeanyi, which was 91, and the number of assistant head teacher that they don't have in Ifeanyi schools, which was 14. Please don't forget, this data was randomly drawn. This is not the accurate data. This is not the reality of Ifeanyi schools. So the teachers gap, we're asked to draw up the teachers gap, which we did. And we wrote out the schools with teachers gap, and we found out that we used count if to get the number of schools with teachers gap, which we did data, referred to the data, and went to refer to the column where teachers gap was. Then we specifically wanted schools that had teachers gap, which we have 197. Then we referred to schools without teachers gap, which was 814, which sums up the total number of 1011. So we wanted to convert it to the percentage, which we did just J2 divided by J4. J2 is the number of schools with teachers gap divided by the total number 1011, which you got 19%. Same thing with schools without teachers gap, which is 814 divided by 1011, which we got 81%. So when you add the two numbers together, you get 100%. Going further, we're also asked to draw up data for average number of pupils. So we wanted to tag this data to supervisors along with the number of teachers per supervisor. So we first of all used the unique function to draw up the names of supervisors for all regions. Then we now went further to attach the average number of pupils per class, which we use average if. We use average if referred back to the column where pupils, total number of pupils for each school was. Then we referred back to, for example, Victoria, which Victoria's name fell under L3. L3 then also referring to the average, which also referring to the total number of where the average number of pupils per class were. That was the total number of pupils. So we just did the average, which just gave us the average for each supervisor. Like when we did the first one, a prompt came up where they asked us, do you want to apply this formula for the rest of the school, the rest of the members, which we clicked on yes, which just automatically brought out the figures. Then we went back to the data page to confirm if those figures were correct, which it was. So same with teacher per supervisor. On the instruction given to us, we saw count if, but we tried using that, which didn't work. So we tried sum if. So the sum if we used was when we referred back like data page, they refer back to the total number where the supervisor's name was, which was in column B. They referred back to the supervisor on this page because we already used the formula for here, which is Abimbola, which is an L2. Then where we had the total, where we had sorry, please can you hear me? I had a network glitch.
Yes, we can hear you. Continue.
No, girl, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry, I had a network glitch. So I said for the number of teachers per supervisor, we use the function of sum if, where we referred back to the data on supervisors, where the column where supervisor's name were referred to the also the particular supervisor in question, than the column where teachers' name were. So we got the total number of teachers per supervisor. Then, like I said, it gave us a prompt. We just applied all true, and we went back to cross-check, which that was correct. So now looking at this, we're asked to bring out the supervisor with the highest KPI. So firstly, what we did was that we just we filtered our data page to just get for Shomolu Lagos-Mainland first, which we did. So on that Shomolu Lagos-Mainland, we did a unique function because Shomolu Lagos-Mainland fell under 308 to 410. So we just did a unique function on that particular place on this page where we now got the supervisors under Shomolu Lagos-Mainland. So for us to now get the lesson completion across the KPIs across all KPI performance across Shomolu Lagos-Mainland, all we just had to do was we had to do an average, but we make sure that we're referring to Shomolu Lagos-Mainland. So we're so specific about our data that we're referring to mostly, if you can see on our formula, we did B308. That means from 308, we just want to capture the data from 308 to 410. Then referred to the supervisor in question, then referred back to the KPI in question, which was lesson completion in column M. So we did this, and we noticed that while we were doing this, if you apply this rule to the rest of the supervisors, it automatically increases the number. So instead of it to go to instead of it to still remain on 308 to 410, it changes to 309 to 411. So we had to be very careful. So we went back to edit for each of the supervisor for each KPI to ensure that it's at 308 to 410 for us to get correct data for all supervisors. So we also went further to do a conditioning format for each for this data for us to get the highest for each supervisor. So if you can see from the place highlighted blue, the dark blue, you can see that each the highest for lesson completion is 72 for Ored-Dolapo. So we just did that. So it just gave us the highest at a glance. Then you can now see it against the supervisors, then which we have 72 for Ored-Dolapo, 82 for that is lesson completion, school leader present, 82 for Adenike, school leader arrived and departed at 86, and so on. So you can just see the figure at a glance. Then we went over further to do the average KPI. So now we're asked to create a gap, the teacher's gap tab. So in this teacher's gap tab, all we had to do was just to use the filter function. So the filter function we did was a refer back to the data page. Then we highlighted, we wanted to get the data from A to H without changing. So we just highlighted A to H, then refer to the data H alone because we wanted to know the schools with teachers gap in particular and the schools that had teachers gap. So when we refer back to A to H, then we now went, then when we refer back to A to H, we now wanted to do this. So we put in quotation yes. So automatically it just brought out all the information from A to H of the schools that had teachers gap, which we have, which you can see here. Then in our MD report, so our question was, our question, which is question 9, Director of School Inspection report showed that teacher came late to school in most of our schools. Just oppose the assertion with your data and profile-driven solution. So on the next tab, which is our MD report, we first of all brought out all the supervisors' name. Then we now brought out the data for just teachers arrived and departed on time. So our average, we had 59%. Also, we had to bring out a data that showed that shows the percentage of teachers in our schools or in our region, because this we just did for the purpose of Lagos-Mainland. We restricted just to Lagos-Mainland and Shomolu. So from our 1,103 schools, we had 28 schools with teachers that are actually staying near and 75 schools with teachers that are actually staying far. So in percentage for people staying near, just had 27% and 73%. Like I said, how do we get this data for schools that are staying far? We just did count if, referred back to the data page, highlighted the column where asked for if the teachers are staying far or near, then put the prompt of near in the quotation for us to get that particular figure. Then this is like a graphical interpretation of this data just written up. So what was the reason? So the reason was that for the data collection, from the data we collected, it was clear that teachers don't arrive early to schools and only about the average teacher arrive early daily with our data saying. Therefore, the school performance have been quite low. Deep diving with the data collected, information gathered shows that quite a number of teachers stay far from their various school location and thus difficult to arrive to school on time. Like we said, that means we have 75% of teachers that actually stays far. Or 75% of schools with teachers, that actually stay far. So when we propose our solution being proposed to the MD was, teachers have been advised, or when we did a group meeting, so supervisors contributed, and this was what we proposed. Teachers were advised or will be advised to ensure that they leave their house early, because this will actually save, this will help them get to school on time and also reduce the high cost of transportation. Also, teachers' early arrival will reflect on the school performance as well, as they have enough time to prepare for the day. Teachers who live very far are advised to look for alternatives to ensure their early arrival to school. So that brings me, I've come to an end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Presenting on behalf of Eti-Osa Surulere team.
So permit me to share my screen. Okay, can we all see my screen? So this is a data handling analysis for Eti-Osa and Surulere team. From the instruction, we are asked to add other columns highlighted in red, the head teacher's name to the STO, percentage STO, which we are able to do successfully here. We have, is there an assistant head teacher with validation of drop down, yes or no? Same with column H, I, J, K, L, M, up to column T. We're able to get this random data from the sheets that was shared on the WhatsApp group. So moving on to our summary page, we have our questions and our answers all mapped out accordingly. The first question was, we should identify all LGAs from the data sheet. So using the unique data, we are able to identify 16 LGAs on the summary page. And also, question 2 says we should identify total numbers of schools in each LGA. Using the count if data, we are able to identify this for each local government in total of 1,001 schools. Question 3 says we should identify all regional manager from the data sheet. Using the unique formula, we are able to bring this up and we got all 10 regional managers. Question 4 says we should identify all schools belonging to, total number of schools belonging to each regional manager, which we are able to do using the count if formula. Question 5 says we should identify schools without assistant head teacher. We are able to use the count if formula using the yes option, and we're able to come up with 510 schools with assistant head teacher. Also, using the count if formula, you're able to get schools without assistant head teacher. We have the graphical representation of question 5 here. Question 6, number of schools without teacher gap. Using the count if formula, we are able to get number of schools without teacher gap and also number of schools with teacher gap. But the question asks us to get the percentage number of schools without teacher gap. So this is what we did. The total number of schools with without teachers gap divided with total number of schools. For question 7, average number of pupils per class. We use the average formula to get the average number of pupils per class. This is also, question 6 was also represented using the graph. For question 8, we are asked to, question 8 asks us to highlight total number of teachers under each supervisors, which we are able to do here using the unique formula. Also, we are also asked to highlight, okay, we are asked to highlight total number of teachers under each supervisor. To do that, we have to extract each of the supervisors without the duplicates. So after doing that, using the unique formula, we're able to use the sum if. Actually, we tried the count if formula, but it was not giving us the accurate answer we needed. So on trying the sum if formula, we're able to get our correct data, which is this. So that is that for question 9. For question 8. Question 9 asks us to show the supervisor in our region that has the highest average KPI. So first of all, we extracted or we filtered supervisors for our region. We have 9 supervisors in my region, and we are also able to get number of schools for each of these supervisors in Eti-Osa and Surulere using the count if formula. So to get the average percentage KPI for each KPI, we used the sum if formula. That is lesson completion. So this is the formula for the sum if that we used. Sum if, sorry, because we have many data we are working with. Okay, so we use the sum if formula and we are able to get, then we divided it by the number of schools because it will be unfair to judge each supervisor just by their KPI, not minding the number of schools they have. So we are able to get their actual performance, then divide it by the number of schools they have for each KPI. The green color code here signifies the supervisor with the highest KPI with the highest performance for each KPI. For average school leader present, we have lesson. For average percentage average lesson completion, we have roots. For percentage school leader arrived and departed on time, we have Ifoma. Percentage teacher arrived and departed on time, we also have Ifoma. Percentage teacher present, we have Solomon. Although this data is not an actual data, as random data were picked to fill in for our data. We also have percentage average quiz attendance mark, 86%, which is roots. Then percentage average LTO, 100%, Mudupe and Ifoma. And also STO, which is lesson. Then also we got the total average number of KPI for the sum KPI. That was how we were able to solve question 9. Question 10 asks us to create another tab that shows only the data of schools with teacher gap only. So referencing the data sheet, we're able to create a filter that shows us column A, everything in column A to T, where our data stopped, and the teacher gap here is highlighted, all showing yes. So we have 508 schools with teacher gap. Finally, the this question, we use the pivot table to get this question. The question is, last session percentage lesson completed was set at a target of 85%. The MD is thinking of increasing the target for the coming session. Kindly give a data-driven advice on this matter using the data. So for my team, we used the pivot table because we didn't need to crack our head looking for formulas to use, as formulas were suggested from the pivot table. So we are putting two factors into consideration. Factors that may affect lesson completion, which is from the data we have where teachers live and if there are teacher gaps. So those are the two factors we put into consideration to first determine if those factors affect lesson completion. If those factors affect lesson completion, then there will be no need for the MD to increase lesson completion, as teachers are still struggling to meet up with the percentage lesson completion that was given in the previous session. So using the pivot table, we're able to analyze this. Most teachers live far. So we have 40% of teachers living far, and about 26% of teachers living far. As I said earlier, this is not an accurate data. This is just a data. So we raised the KPI. We increased it with 5% to see, okay, if there is an increment in this KPI, will there be any difference? Will there be any significance? But using this analysis, we found out that 40% of teachers who live near be able to complete. Only 40% of teachers who live near be able to complete the lesson completion above 85%, and also 59.8 teachers who live far be able to complete lessons above 85%. The second conclusion we drew, or the second factor we put into consideration, was teachers gap. So that schools that have teachers gap, we are having more lessons completed than schools without teachers gap. So even with this, the schools are still struggling. There was no difference, there was no change. So even with the increment in, if the lesson completion should be increased, it won't affect it won't say that lesson completion or teachers who come from far will do well to increase lesson completion, or teachers who come from near will do well to increase lesson completion. The result will still be the same. As a result, an increment in percentage lesson completion would not be necessary, as both factors considered didn't change performance of lesson completion. That is all from Eti-Osa and Surulere. Thank you very much for listening.
And that brings me to the point where I will, as a general feedback, whenever we are asked to fill a data, fill a sheet, imagine you putting a wrong value. Now just put yourself in that light. I'm not saying you have done it before. Just imagine you putting a wrong value. What will be the effect on the output and the analysis at the end? Definitely, we will be analyzing wrongly. So this is a wake-up call for all of us that at any point in time, when a sheet is raised, it is not to add job or to add task to us. It is for a problem that will be solved afterwards. So imputing correct data is one of the most fundamental parts of data analysis. Imputing correct data, because if the data is not correct in the first place, every of other process we are putting in place will not make sense, because we will be deciding based on wrong judgment. Please, always impute correct data, always impute the correct data type. And I'm going to help you now with the next task that we will do, so that any time and any point in time a sheet is raised to produce whatever data, you have your data readily available for you. Going forward, from this training that we have had in these 2 days, I can categorically say that you have taken a huge data analysis and you are not a novice anymore. Our assignment from here henceforth will be for each and every one of us to create a personal tracker for ourselves. Personal tracker. What will be in the personal tracker? It will be details of all your schools, all your teachers, all your head teachers, and how they are faring in their respective KPIs. Personal tracker, which will be updating daily, and you will be seeing the movement of your teachers so you can address problems before they arise. Not until when there's a big issue, you now know, so since last week, your tab was down and you're not teaching. So If you are monitoring it daily with your personal tracker that you're going to design for yourself, you will not only be highly responsive to any sheet that will be raised, you will also be on top of your game, on top of your school, and attending to issues and preempting one that will occur. And I want to bet you, if you monitor your schools day to day like that with that personal tracker, you will be shocked at what your KPIs will sum up to in the long run. If you need any help in that regard to build that, you can reach out to me, and I'm sure your RMs are on this group. They will get back to you and ask for your personal trackers. You have the whole of this week to put things together and share ideas among yourself. But we want to do things differently in the next term. We want to be so on top of our games and monitor our progress so vividly. And using that will guide us and help us. So when you're done with yours, just tell your RMs, send the link to your RMs. I'm sure you have a folder where they keep and monitor you too. So they can also guide you to that, you've not imputed data for today, so that everybody is on point and you are on top of your game. So thank you very much for all your good work, for all the sacrifices that you have put into this. It can be so much of a stress now, but I tell you, you will begin to reap the fruits thereof. I've been told that for every participant that has stayed up until now, your certificate of participation is ready. And I'm putting the numbers together to announce the overall best in terms of presentation, correctness of data, and organization of data. So I will announce that later in the day when I'm done. But for now, we all have access to our certificate, and I'm sure May will address us very soon. And if the senior regional manager have one or two things to share with us, we will do so. So my parting gift for you is this. I'm going to share a link to, some of us know about it, to a course on this that I did on Udemy, and it's going to be free of charge for everybody, so that we can even add some certificates from a renowned organization to our portfolio, so that we can be so sure that we just do not know how to do it, we are certified to do it. And from me, thank you to everyone. Thank you for the wonderful work. Thank you for being supportive. And thank you for your sacrifice.